Well, wonderful. It's 12:02, so let's get started. And I know that other folks might join us today. So let me share my screen. Um, Hello and welcome, welcome, welcome. It's so great to see you all um, on this Tuesday. And it's such a momentous time for us to be together, in light of all that's happening in our world today, in our country, in our communities. So today I really just wanted to create a space for us to really be present and, share a little bit about what presence really means. And then we all can practice with each other some ways to be present for ourselves and others. Um, and then, have you kind of practice this in your own life moving forward, opening up for some questions. Before I begin, I will say that, I don't have all the answers around this stuff. What we do is that we train organizations in breaking bias to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion. And our work is really an integrated approach that connects the head with our hearts and our bodies to take action. So healing, particularly in light of the recent massacre and all sorts of other things that are happening, is kind of fresh in all of our minds, as is the wounding that has occurred and continues to occur. So for me, it's really an opportunity for us to kind of be with those wounds, but also hold that aspiration of healing. So as we kind of jump in, as we do in all of our sessions, I'm just going to invite you all to just come to a comfortable seated or standing position. We begin all of our work with a mindfulness exercise, and it's just to give you an experience of what mindfulness is if you've never practiced before, but also to kind of understand in your own felt sense body how the role of presence can play in really taking action. So wherever you are, just come to a comfortable seated position, or you can place your hands on your knees or on your lap. And as you begin to rest or settle in your body, you may want to close your eyes or place your gaze at a stationary point in front of you. For the first few moments, just bringing your awareness to your breath. Really noticing this breath with a sense of wonder and curiosity. This breath entering the body, this breath leaving the body. This act of breathing happening on its own. The body being breathed. Now notice if there's anything happening in the mind. Perhaps there's thinking, planning, worrying. Whatever it is, that's okay, really compassionately bearing witness to what's happening right now. And really recognizing and acknowledging it. Thinking, thinking, planning, planning. And then see if you can let that go and bring your attention to your body. Any place in your body from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet that may feel tense, where you may be holding. Just notice that sense of contraction, perhaps in your jaw or shoulders or chest or someplace else. And then perhaps making a gentle invitation to relax, release, to find a sense of softening. Breathing in, breathing out. And as we begin to return back to our space together, I'd just love for you to reflect on what brought you here today. Why did you sign up? Then why did you actually click the link to attend? Is there a higher aspiration that you're holding for yourself or your community? Once again, using that same power of awareness, just to notice whatever arises. No need to think it, no need to analyze it, but just noticing that movement of the heart. What brought you to healing together? And after your next exhale, you could bring your chin to your chest, stretching the back of your neck. And then slowly come back to the room. If your eyes were closed, you can open them. And here we are. So, I love this exercise of just being mindful. We have a small group today. So this is actually exciting because we'll get to know one another, but also be a part of this conversation together. And would love for you all to just kind of introduce yourselves, using chat, your name and location, where you're calling in from, if you haven't done so already. And also what came up in the meditation for you, what brought you here today. So Angela's coming from Kansas City, Missouri. Susan's in New York. Euphemia, also in New York on Staten Island. And Jonah's in Berkeley, California. And they shared that what brought them here is the much needed calm after 2 crazy months. And hi, Jordan. Live in Virginia. Lovely to meet you too. So yeah, much needed calm. Anything else? It's bringing you all together here. And it could be difficult to share with a group of strangers, but that's basically the process of healing together, right? It requires a little bit of intimacy and vulnerability and sharing for us to be really doing this work of healing. With that, let's proceed, and I hope we'll get more interaction. But because we're here and we come from so many different backgrounds, again, just over here we have 7 of us here in 7 different places, I think over 3 time zones. So we'd just love to introduce some shared agreements for our time together, particularly as you interact with each other. Using I statements, this is kind of the crux of our work. And the work of breaking bias, kind of really rooting how we think, how we speak, particularly how we speak in that, in the first person, using I think, I believe, in my experience, and just kind of beginning to dissociate that tendency of using the royal we, or even generalizing, overall, but really like I think, or I have heard, or I have learned. Again, this is a practice that we're cultivating. Second is really commitment to dialogue, which has these 2 wings of compassion and understanding. So really kind of keeping that in the back of your mind, that benefit of doubt. Third is staying present. The topic of bias, of healing takes us into the past, will project us into the future. But, here we are, sitting across a screen, kind of really being present to that aspect of it too, noticing the mind, but also coming back to the body. The fourth is connected to staying present, which is really investigating discomfort. Even now, as I'm going through this, there might be discomforts like, oh my God, this guy's talking so much. I just want to chill. That's cool. Where is that in your body? You can become a scientist, an observer of your own experience as you move through this. And the last is privacy and confidentiality, particularly as you go into small groups. really keeping what's shared there in the intimacy of that group. So I hope we can all agree to these. And, I will definitely be, this is one place where I can play referee as we proceed forward. So now as we kind of jump into our topic of presence today, I want to kind of hear from you all, what is healing to you? What does healing mean? What are some things that are healing? But what is this idea of healing itself? What is it? What does it mean to you? And if you haven't thought about this before, or think about it now, like really giving yourself the opportunity. And again, you don't have to be right or wrong. You're not getting tested, but just sharing. You can use the chat function to really share what that means, what comes to you. Jonah shared acceptance. It's beautiful, right? Healing to me is recovering, taking time to find what I need, then taking next steps. Exactly. It's beautiful, right? Okay, a few other folks here. And what I love about this particular reflection is that, healing has different meanings for different people, right? And even different meanings for the same people at different times, right? What healing means to us at this moment may differ what it means to us, to me, tomorrow, or what it meant yesterday. And that is basically what we're talking about, this onward progression, this onward movement towards what Jordan used for them, I think we use she, her, for her really about recovering. For Colleen, is tending to deep wounds. Yeah, I love that word tend, right? Tend and befriend, to really, there's like that word tend itself has this level of compassion that's attached to it. And Euphemia shared, healing means truly letting go of all past hurts and starting over with newness and no baggage. So again, beautiful reflections here. And I'd want you to keep these reflections for yourselves, particularly as we move through the session together today. And I'll begin with just kind of sharing this quote that I love from Dr. King, who shared that as my suffering mounted, I soon realized that there were two ways with which I could respond: react with bitterness or seek to transform the suffering into a creative force. I decided to follow the latter course. So I find this really resonates with me because I've been on that former path, and I'll share my story a little bit with you all. Susan knows this, and so does Colleen. But for those of you who I haven't met before, for me, my journey to healing itself, healing myself, really began with activism. It was a way for me to kind of heal what was hurting within, right? So I think for me, as I was becoming an activist, after college, really moving and doing a lot of international human rights work, and really seeing the disparities and the injustices based on ethnicity, based on poverty and class, of course, based on race, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do something. So as Dr. King talked about, it was a lot of bitterness that was fueling, because it was like, it shouldn't be this way. But, that felt really ineffective for me, because I kept on exhausting this motor that I have, this energy that I have, by trying to convince other people through anger, through resentment, that it shouldn't be this way. I became a lawyer, right, for that purpose. And as I was moving through that process, I could see that my bitterness and resentment mounted, and I was failing financially, emotionally, socially. People didn't want to be around me. My family would be like, oh my God, can we be around you just to smile? Because constantly you're sharing all the things that are wrong with the world. And it was around that time where I was like, oh, wow, this really has a lot to do with what's happening outside, but also a lot to do with what has happened inside. How did these things around racism or homophobia or classism or international human rights affect me? And that's where the work for me began. This was about over 10 years ago. And for me, the work of healing really began with this thing that we hear about in a lot of ancient wisdom traditions, the power of bearing witness, right? Bearing witness. And oftentimes we talk about bearing witness, we're like, we're going to bear witness to what's happening in the world outside. And it's, thought of as a compassionate response, right? Compassion, the word itself means to suffer with, to bear witness, to have compassion, to suffer with the pain of another. Now, the beautiful thing is we're kind of trained to suffer with other people, but are we trained to suffer with ourselves, to bear witness to our own pain, our own wounding, our own hurts? And that is my invitation for you all today is, just now, whatever has come up for you as I've shared my story around healing and how that connects to breaking bias, because this is the work of breaking bias. We can change all the policies and practices out there, the letter of the law, as we've done in the past, until we're really able to transform the heart, we're not going to be able to truly build beloved community. So what I'd love for us to do, and in a moment, we'll break you up into groups of 2. Actually, we have a nice group of 6 here. But using our shared agreements, using I statements, commitment to dialogue, staying present, investigating discomfort, and privacy and confidentiality, I'd like to just share, if in a dyad, so either you share or you bear witness. What are you hurting from right now? Just whatever comes to mind. What are you hurting from? And this is really an opportunity for you to practice being on this path of healing. You're likely going to be with a stranger sitting somewhere around the country, who's a stranger at this time. But this person also shares your humanity, really remembering that. And this is one way for us to really humanize ourselves and each other. So you can introduce your name and of course, where you're calling in from. But, so I'll share like a prompt for you all, but we'll break out for about 8 minutes. So I'll say about 2 to 3 minutes each person speak, and then you'll have a few minutes to really discuss what was shared, around in 8 minutes of time. And then we'll come back into the group and really talk about it. And then how can we really use this in our day-to-day life? So Colleen will put you guys into small groups of 2. So please join your groups and we'll see you in 8 minutes. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. This is one of my least favorite parts of doing this work, which is to, break up these, really deep conversations y'all were having. But I want to share a little bit, I want you to really take a few minutes to really marinate everything that was shared and heard as you bore witness to what other people were sharing. But also as you bore witness to yourself as you were sharing in such an intimate way with one another, particularly around this prompt of, what are you hurting from? And I want to, as you all let that marinate and we open it up for some questions, I want to really talk about, kind of what I feel is one way of doing this work of advancing DEIB. Oh yes, thanks for coming in, Catherine. We'll see you. But this work of advancing diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging is really the work of healing. And it really consists of 10 competencies. So it's really about, again, as I said earlier, integrating our head, which is really about learning, acquiring knowledge, raising awareness and comprehension, but also the other 2 competencies of building the foundation for developing new competencies. And that is optimism and curiosity, wanting to know more, and also believing that change can happen, right? So that really leads us to the second stage of really developing the capacities. So it's like, if you think about it, I can describe to you how to ride a bike, the mechanics of it, the physics of it, but you won't be able to ride a bike until you get on a bike and start pedaling. So that's what develop is like. That's what you all did together in the small group, really developing these skills of skillful communication, well-being, collective identity, which is being able to feel connected to other people across difference, and empathy and compassion. Really, like empathy and compassion is, what we need now in our world to really move us from a place of division and polarization to understanding. And as we develop these skills, all 8 of these skills of awareness through empathy and compassion, we're really garnering the other 2 competencies required for action to propel action forward, which is empowerment, right? Feeling equipped to take action. And the second is social cohesion, which is not only feeling connected to people across difference, being able to collaborate with people across difference to take action. So that's really kind of, and that gets us to a place of wholeness, that gets us to a place of healing, to be able to recover, as Jordan had shared, and accept things as they are, but then want them to be different. So with that, I'm just going to open it up for any questions that may have come up for you, any observations you noticed in your small group or overall in this program so far. And I can even stop sharing. You're welcome to unmute yourself at this time, or you could also share something via chat and I can read it out loud. There's no way that you all are here without any observations or questions around this work. Yeah, Jenna said they talked about anxiety versus hurt. Feel free to unmute yourself and elaborate a little bit.
Sure. What's fresh on my mind, and I guess maybe my heart, is that I just went through COVID. I actually went through 2 rounds of it, long story. And I was really worried about infecting the most immunocompromised members of my family and friends. And so and I know that a friend is going through that this morning because she just tested positive. So that was a whole conversation that Catherine and I, because we both know each other as well, that we had. So we certainly are both risk averse and have been trying to keep people safe. But that was my biggest fear became recognized. And that was also the same for another friend this morning too. So that's the most fresh hurt for right now, but there certainly is anxiety that's played into that as well.
Sure, and the invitation here for me around this, whenever anxieties come up and hurts come up, and this happens to me on a daily basis, right, with so many things happening, is to notice where in our body we feel activated. And you don't have to do this out loud with me, but just to notice, like, oh, this feels like a heaviness on my chest. Or I feel like there's a lot of energy that's, for me, oftentimes the energy is really in my head and I feel it in my jaw, like really tensing. And just in that moment of mindfulness, I could begin to just observe that contraction or that heaviness. And it slowly kind of passes away, just as everything passes away. And for me, and based on the science, that is kind of the juicy place where we could begin to respond to the challenge. We're basically garnering strength, whereas kind of succumbing to that cloud, for me, that it becomes a cloud of anxiety, the cloud of, oh my God, all the things that are going to go wrong, that are going to go wrong, excuse me. But yeah, just an opportunity to test that out. Thank you for sharing, and I really hope you recover and your loved ones recover, with ease. It is a challenging time. But thank you for sharing that. Anyone else, Jordan, Euphemia, Susan? You're welcome. Thank you.
I would say I encountered great wisdom in being able to share what was on my heart today, and And that never ceases to amaze me. And I loved being reminded that the antidote to fear and disease is love.
Mhm.
So I was fortunate enough to be in a group with two amazing people. And what I learned is that there are different levels. While we might see something from one eye level view, there are different levels that create the whole view. And when we engage with other people, one person at a time, to really get to understand each other, then we get a different viewpoint than our original viewpoint.
Mhm.
And that it starts with one person at a time
Mm.
to make the change and to make the difference. And too often we are looking for other people to start it up when it really begins with us.
Yeah. Yeah. So beautiful. Thank you both for sharing. And I feel, as you shared, Susan, that's kind of the beauty of and the power of bearing witness and presence, right? When you have another person really mirroring you and knowing that they're here and they're listening fully, you're able to access, I'm able to access my own true self, my own authentic self, which sometimes, as you said, it's surprising, like this wisdom came out of me, but it's always been there. And this is why we heal together, because in that presence, we can excavate what we already know. And again, to let those clouds of anxiety pass. And as you shared, Euphemia, yeah, this is the work of being able to see things from different perspectives and appreciating it. And what you demonstrated there is really this, willingness, this curiosity to engage, this desire to engage. And that is how this work of building bridges is kind of, it comes to fruition and has, historically in different places too. So thank you all for sharing. I know we're approaching time and I'd love to do another mindfulness exercise with you. But if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to type them in the chat and I'll definitely get to them. But as we kind of come to a close, I'd love to just put a plug to really, if you don't already, follow us on social media and Be More with the New, and really continue this conversation of healing together, and really begin to, for us, channel kind of our collective energy towards solutions, towards innovations. And then also, if this is something you enjoyed, this is the work of many of our courses, including our Breaking Racial Bias membership community, which is really about arming people with the knowledge they need to understand the nature of systemic racism, and really complementing that knowledge with a coaching community, a community, coaching opportunities, credentialing to actually get certified, and also metrics to really begin to track your progress or the progress of your organization on those 10 competencies that we can really measure using quantitative analysis. So do check it out. It's bit.ly/breaking racial or break racial bias. It's one of our flagship courses and membership communities now. Susan's a part of it. And then, some practices after our time together, after this session, really leaving 15 to 30 minutes of time for recovery to really integrate whatever was activated or what was brought to surface. You could get embodied, go for a walk, drink some water, breathe, stretch. And then if you'd like to ask any of the questions, we'll stick around for some time after the session. So with that, I'm just going to invite you all to another mindfulness exercise as we come to a close. So once again, taking some time to return back to your seat. You can rest your feet on the ground below you. Place your hands on your lap or on your knees. And then just letting go of everything that was shared or heard. You can always return to it. in a few minutes. In this moment, really returning your attention to your breath, and through your breath to your body. Notice any place in your body that feels tense, that feels contracted. And see if you can become mindful of the feeling of tenseness or contraction. What is it? Is there a buzzing? Is there a holding? Is there pressure? Really noticing that with curiosity. Because what we're trying to do is really become intimate with, to bear witness to what happens in our own bodies when we're activated, when we experience something challenging, and where in our bodies behold it. And as we build this intimacy, we're able to befriend it over time. So really noticing that holding, that contraction, and see if it changes with every breath that you take, observing its transmutation, whether it spreads or shrinks. And then really inviting a softening there, a sense of release and surrender. And as we come out of our session today, I'd love for you to reflect on kind of one commitment you'd like to make towards your own healing, moving forward. So once again, just noticing whatever arises, the movement of the heart. What is that one commitment for you? And then after your next exhale, you can bring your chin to your chest, touching the back of your neck, and slowly come back. So thank you all for that short exercise. I wanted to share this closing quote. You can search throughout the entire universe for someone who is more deserving of your love and affection than you are yourself. And that person is not to be found anywhere. You yourself, as much as anyone else in the entire universe, deserves your love and affection. This is a timeless teaching of the Buddha from 2,500 years ago. It applied then and it applies now. So with that said, would love for you to share as a closing, one commitment you have for yourself coming out of this session. So please, you could speak it out loud or share it in the chat.
To be active in your community, our community.
Thank you, Susan. May it be so. Colleen, non-avoidance. May it be so. Jordan, be patient with myself. May that be so. Sure. We're holding, and I'll stop sharing, but thank you all again for coming. And Euphemia and Jonna. Euphemia, be true to myself. May it be so. Well, thank you everyone so much for coming. And we'll see you next month. We'll have another session like this in a month, healing together. Meanwhile, please do stay in touch with us, in any way. And also just take care of yourself. Remember that no one is more deserving of your love than yourself. So thank you all, and we'll see you next week or next month. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone. Yep. Bye, Susan. Good to see you.